Hey, this is Caleb the nurse here in the virtual studio. Got a cool little green screen thing going on, and we are with Brian Lee today. Brian is a retirement and wealth planning strategist, and today we're going to talk about exit planning. If you are a nurse, you've been working 25, 30 years, and you want to get out, you're like, all right, I'm done. How do I actually do this? We're going to talk through what is needed to um, make that exit peacefully. Go ahead, Brian. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you, Caleb, for the invite. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and everything overall. I've effectively helped people in this phase of nearing retirement overall for effectively for 25 years. And so when it comes to, making these critical decisions, it's important to have a guide to help you in these critical stages towards the end of your career.
Cool. Thanks for that, Brian. And so let's say, like, I talk about in my training, the Millionaire Nurse Prescription, a true story of a nurse I worked with. And I saw this actually a lot when I worked at the VA. These are nurses who have been in the workforce for 25, 30 years. Sometimes they have um, some military experience they're bringing in. So, like, they were a nurse, officer for 5 or 10 years. Then they go into the VA and they rack up another 20 years. And they're looking at about like 30 years of accumulated savings and working. I don't know the right word. They've been saving money for a long time, right? They're
Mhm.
about that 55 to 60 age, kind of looking at that exit planning state, like ready to leave. And they've showed me their accounts. They have over $1 million in their accounts. And this is not uncommon for late Gen X, um, early Gen X, late boomer nurses who have been working a long time and just frankly put the time in, right? Now it's time to leave. And they have about a million, 1.5 locked up in accounts. Like, how a nurse who comes to you with this type of scenario, what are the questions you're asking them, and what is a typical strategy to turn this accumulated wealth into lifetime income? Like, what are you thinking through with a case like that?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we're going to look at the asset base as a whole in terms of, are they pre-tax dollars from a traditional 401k or a traditional TSP, for instance? And what are the tax implications, when they start withdrawing the funds down the road? So we've got to look at two aspects. You got the growth aspect and you got the income planning aspect. So they got to solidify their situation from the expenses. So what are your monthly expenses like? And so that's where the income piece is going to come into play, making sure that they can pay their bills in retirement or semi-retirement in some capacity. And then the growth phase is for them to go on vacations, legacy planning and a whole series of things. And then to kind of dovetail off of, so I said pre-tax basically, which is partners with the government. Post-tax is not partnerships. So two separate conversations, but those are the kind of the main components that we look at for starters, and then we go from there.
Okay, and like, what are some of the golden ages in regards to you have a wad of money and it's time to make a move? Like, what are some of those golden ages that we are keeping in mind where things like not getting penalized on liquidating your 401k and um, retirement age, things like that?
Yeah, so the first benchmark's 59 and a half. That's basically when you can start taking or distributions from your 401k plan or your retirement, savings nest egg that you've set up. And then there's what they call, if you're still gainfully employed after 59 and a half, there's either what they call an in-service distribution, and where you can start converting the funds out to a private, planner or a private situation that makes better sense or gives you better options. And then the next benchmark basically, so is what they call required minimum distributions. Those start on average at 74 years of age. So if you have the traditional bucket of money, meaning pre-tax funds, now you have to start taking, that's partnerships with the government, and so now you have to start taking a percentage of that off your gross distribution, and then you end up with the net. So if you're in the 20% tax bracket, 30%, wherever that falls. And so there's some implications on how you take the money and how often. But there's basically different segments of life. So the first 10 years of retirement's the critical phases, because keep in mind we gotta make sure the retirement lasts until age 100, and we got to do that through growth and income. So there's a little bit of a thought process there.
Yeah, because now, thanks to guys like me, we're putting in uh, minimally invasive aortic valves called TAVRs and MitraClips, and you're getting a pacemaker, Watchman, ablation. You're going to be on all the meds, right? And
Correct.
people are living longer, so I think it's crazy to think that we need to position ourselves financially to take care of ourselves until 100.
Amen. Yeah. In regards to in the 1990s, we said assets base should travel to age 90. Now, they used to do the Schmuckers commercials, and everybody remembers those at age 100. There's too many of them now. The Today Show would have hours of them displaying 100-year-olds that are still around with us today because of math and science, right? And people like yourself that help them, stay healthy and alert, and for many years to come. So
Mm-hmm. Cool. So we need to live till 100. All right. So ideally, if you put your ducks in a row, right, you can leave by. Do you see nurses leaving earlier than 59 and a half? Or is that a rarity?
it's a rarity nowadays. The professionals that I have, clients that are in the nursing profession, most of them are going to exit around 70 years of age because of Social Security benefits and full retirement,
70?
age 70.
Is there a way to not work until age 70?
Yes, in regards to saving more money is the key. So the $1 million example that you gave, that's a little bit different trajectory where we can grow that, and then peel off portions for income to cover expenses. But somebody that hasn't saved enough, they need time in the market and money, right, to make up for that. So
Okay, let's do
early.
let's do me. Let's do me. So I am 40. How old am I? I'm 41. Okay. I'm doing my employer match right now. I'm trying to max that out. I'm not contributing 18,000 a year, like which I believe is the top amount. Just because I can't afford it yet. Once this podcast goes viral, man, that 18,000 is going in the 401k. Um, but like, assuming I could cover my living expenses, like what would you tell 41-year-old Caleb the nurse, or Sally the nurse, or Jim the nurse, who's like me and doesn't want to work until age 70? Like, what can we do now to position ourselves to leave at 59 and a half, 62, right? Something like that.
Absolutely. So reposition, if your employer allows for the Roth contribution, you'd want to elect the Roth contribution, because then we're eliminating that partnership with the government. So those funds can be taken prior, at 59 and a half or later. If you're trying to shorten your time, there's no required minimum distribution then involved, and so that gets into a whole other conversation. But long story short, at age 65, there's what they call IRMA surcharges. Nobody talks about it, but it's another surprise down the horizons for people that put away money in the qualified funds. And so, take increasing those contributions would be my first suggestion. So for the 26 calendar year, you can put $24,000 away. If you're under 50, over 50 in the 401k chassis, you can do a little bit north of 31,000. So if you're able to max fund it, take advantage of those matches if they're available.
Mm-hmm. So, what did you say that max number for under age 50 is in the 401k contribution bucket?
$24,000 a year that you're allowed to fund up to
Oh,
of your
oh,
own
okay.
income.
Yeah, the number I had in my head was 18,000, but that's probably a few years old. Well, it is a few years old, obviously,
They adjust over the course of time. So every year, the numbers go up.
because the dollar is essentially becoming worthless.
Correct. Yeah. You got the partnership of inflation and taxes, unfortunately, is going to be with us while we're around. And there's a partnership, unfortunately, when we're gone as well. So there's some implications there as well. So we got to
Mhm.
factor all that into play.
Now, I know you're a fiduciary, and this isn't investment advice, but where does from your viewpoint and like just your opinion, like where do alternative investments come into this mix? Precious metals, Bitcoin, buying a convenience store down the street. Like, how does all this equate into your mind in terms of wealth planning? Is it, a third or fourth thing you would add on? Um,
Sure. And so I personally, when I'm talking to clients or situations, what I'm advising people to do is we got to have a few different streams of income. You can't rely on one ace in the hole or one situation anymore. It used to be Social Security was people's retirement. Well, those days are over because that's about 20% of your overall retirement. Okay. So then how do we make up that 60% to get to the 80? The recommended percentage is 70 to 80% of what you're living on today is what you're going to need in the future. So that's about 25 times on average of what you made over your life is what you need to save. And so investing in real estate's a good thing. Like you mentioned, maybe acquiring a business. And then some people will say, you know what, they retire and then they realize, you know what, I'm not ready to retire. They go back and enter the workforce in some capacity, or they open a
mhm.
business, or they follow another passion project, where at least they have some revenue coming in. Because once if funds get depleted, the worst thing for people is they have to get a part-time job at 85 or 90 because they ran out of money. And so we want to avoid that at all costs and making sure that we're taking, um, you know, not a lot out, but just enough to be comfortable. So the withdrawal rates change because of interest rates. And so from the standpoint, on average, the withdrawal rates used to be north of 5%. And there's other ways we can strategically plan and help people get that number, but they're around 3 to 4% of your overall nest egg that you save that you can, withdraw on a yearly basis to keep your portfolio from imploding.
So let's say I had $1 million portfolio. That means I could withdraw safely 50,000 a year and still roughly maintain the principal.
That would pretty much be the top, correct, in terms of where you wouldn't want to go above that.
Hmm. Okay. So probably staying away from the casinos then in my golden years, because let's face it, I'm not the world's best gambler.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't want to take a calculated risk on a retirement or anything, but if they have bingo night, that's probably okay to attend to that, especially if they have free popcorn or tchotchkes to give away.
Yeah, that's for sure. Um, okay, cool. So, I guess just to recap and tie up this conversation, um, I'm a nurse. I come to you, hey, I'm, uh, let's just say 62, right? I've got a million plus, or maybe 750, right? What is, and I want to leave in a year. Like, what's the 365-day game plan to get dialed in and ready to not be working anymore, to get that, that potluck, in the nurse culture, when you leave, you get about 20 minutes of celebration dedicated to you before like everyone's got to go back to work. That's the cake, that's the potluck, that's the card that gets signed, sent around the unit, right? I want that potluck in 1 year. What are we doing this year to plan for it?
Yeah. So first and foremost, it starts with the plan. We got to see the numbers in terms of what that interprets to be, from the standpoint. So is that individual staying in the state that they're currently, or are they relocating to a state with no taxes? So there's some implications there, right, from the standpoint of their situation. But it starts with a successful roadmap and a plan where they can map out all the obstacles, pricing out their life. How much is their life going to cost them? You got utilities, you got mortgage payments maybe potentially, or you have other obligations, your basic necessities basically, and then breaking out what are your needs and what are your wants and how can we satisfy both. We got to satisfy the needs first and then the wants to follow. And then from there, we can really craft a narrative that, speaks to that individual and it accomplishes all their goals is what, but planning is the key. You got to plan, ahead.
All right, so let's say we plan, all jargon aside, are a lot of clients turning that nest egg into some sort of annuity, or is it more of like a withdrawal strategy, or like what are you generally seeing clients do?
Yeah, a percentage of the assets we're going to break off for income reasons to cover those basically needs in life in terms of their basic necessities, because there's still things in retirement or semi-retirement that exist. You're going to still have food. You're going to still have insurances coverage. You're going to still have, utility bills and car, expenses, and then your emergency, related expenses overall. For the want side of things, that's more of us growing the asset base to help so we can peel off money to go on those, that the dream come true Maui vacation or whatever, they set for the retirement goal overall. And then maybe it's legacy planning for the future. Maybe it's helping the next generation or whatever they want that narrative to be.
So you're looking to take their asset base and like kind of divide it off into chunks.
You have to, yeah, you have to grow. You have to continue to grow the asset base because keep in mind there's going to be up markets and down markets, and so if you take money out the wrong time, it's called the sequence of returns. That may impact your future, and so we have to be diligent on where we're taking monies. There's what they call a withdrawal order, and so that's one of the exercises that we go through, is to make sure that the monies that you're taking it from the right bucket. That's where people kind of have a tendency to make mistakes if they're doing it on their own.
So this all sounds a little more complicated than the way I do my personal budgeting, which look at my B of A account, do a long sigh, and wonder what bill I'm going to pay first.
Correct, correct. Yeah, we're going to break out, basically put together a budget or an expense plan first and foremost. We need to see what does life cost us. Nobody really knows. Like, how do you price out your life? Well, you have to have a budget or a plan to understand kind of where is the money going. The two biggest addictions that we have out there. The first one's called Amazon. The other one's called DoorDash. We pay for convenience. And
That's true.
so those are things that we need to kind of understand, kind of what are the expenditures and what's the lifestyle that they're currently doing, and can we sustain that in the future.
I've personally stopped bending over to pick up the Amazon boxes. I literally just kick them into the front door. I'm like, because I know I didn't order this, I know I don't want it, and I know I don't care about it. And as a nurse, I need to save my back. What's one way I save my back? I don't bend over to pick up the boxes. I just kick them in, and one of my roommates, aka children, will come, like little crabs and pick it up and shake it and like, is this something I got or I wanted? Or my wife's like, oh, my dress is here. I'm like, yes, it is. Of course it is. So, which
Absolutely.
is sad because one of the biggest joys of pre-Amazon life was getting a package in the mail,
Correct.
and that's gone. So like now, now I think getting like a handwritten card is so rare, and it's like, oh my gosh, like somebody wrote me a letter. That's why Christmas is fun because Christmas cards. So, okay, so thanks for coming on, Brian. I think my takeaway from this is one, I didn't follow a thing you said. And two, I'm glad there are people like you in our corner that can help walk me through this type of thing because as a nurse and an entrepreneur, like this is just so out of my pocket, right? And not that you weren't clear, but like if there's a lot at stake here, and having someone like yourself walk, a hardworking nurse like myself, or Sally the nurse, or Jim, or Jan, or whatever their name is, it's important, right? And because even if you withdraw the money the wrong way, like there's a lot at stake, right? You can lose years of accumulation like that if you don't do it right, right?
100%. The go with an expert it's reliable, it's predictable. This is your nest egg and this is your future. It's not amateur hour, and you don't want to take a gamble with your financial path ahead.
Yeah. So Brian is actually one of our nurse financial mentors we have here on the Caleb the Nurse Show. You could say it. And because we are partnered with Retirement Solutions Group, and Brian is affiliated with that. So if you want to meet with Brian or one of our other advisors to help you navigate through this, just go to calebthenurse.com and watch our free training, and we'll share with you at the end how you can meet with Brian, how you can meet with Kevin, how you can meet with Tony. These are just some of our preferred advisors, or we like to call them nurse mentors, because there's really nothing to be sold here. It's really just about helping you navigate this. And if there is a product or service that would help you through this transition, they'll let you make your own decisions. But the heart of this show, my heart, and why Brian and our other partners have partnered with us is we want to help nurses exit the workforce with dignity and strength and without confusion. And all the time, ever since I've been on this personal finance journey, I keep asking people what's your retirement plan? What are you doing? And I ask 10 different people and I get 10 different responses, right? And in the hospital, we just don't really talk about money, right? We're all here to make money. Yeah, we're here to help people and stuff, but at the end of the day, we work because we need to make money, right? And it's amazing how little of our brain and little of our focus goes towards making sure we're doing it right. And retirement, theoretically, should be a very long portion of your life. Yet we give it so little focus, and we think it's something that we'll just deal with later, right? And so this is what I'm trying to avoid, right? And as I talk about in my free training at calebthenurse.com, I was literally contributing for 5 to 6 years, probably longer, I can't remember exactly, into my TSP, which is the government provided 401k account, without adjusting where the money was going. I was just putting it into the government backed G funds. And if you know anything about TSP, they basically get no growth. They're like a 2 or 3% growth rate, which inflation, you're losing money at that point due to inflation, especially in today's market. And 5 minutes with a nurse mentor, he was a nurse, but he was a personal finance guru. He reallocated my account, and that 5 minute conversation made me tens of thousands of dollars in gains over the next few years. And so when we do our review, Brian, he's going to help you log into your hospital provider account. So, and if you're like early or mid career, he's going to make sure that that's configured correctly, right? That costs nothing, right? That doesn't cost a dime, right? And if there's other things that he can do to help you optimize it, that's what we're going to do. And that's really the intention behind what we're doing here at Caleb the Nurse. And so if you want to meet with Brian, if you want to meet with one of our nurse mentors, go to calebthenurse.com. Watch our free training, and I share how you can do it for basically no cost at the end to meet with Brian and or our team. And that's about it. And I'll give you the last word, Brian, to our nurses.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity and everything. Kind of to reinforce what Caleb was saying and everything. This is your livelihood. This is your future. You're good at your craft, obviously, but have somebody go through that with you. Just understand where you're at and where you need to go. There's no sales pitch or nothing. It's just a good old fashioned conversation. Let's get acquainted and see how we can be a resource to you.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Brian. Appreciate you. We'll talk soon. And thanks for listening to the Caleb the Nurse podcast.